she got to the point where she was picking me up 2 and 3 times a day, just because that was the mindset that I had. I was determined to get out of this wheelchair. And that's, you know, you're at the bottom of the barrel. You can't even walk. And knowing what I was able to accomplish before, you know, being active and all that, there had to be a better place. And I had that mindset that I'm not staying in this wheelchair no matter what. No matter what these doctors said, I'm getting out of it.
On today's episode of Heading West, we have ultra endurance athlete and cancer survivor, Brad Kelley. Steve, you're a fellow Ironmaner. How impressed were you with Brad?
It is amazing with Brad overcoming cancer, being paralyzed, in a wheelchair, and doing over 16 Ironmans and a double and a triple Ironman, and he's planning on a quadruple Ironman. And he does not have the victim's mentality.
No.
And it's amazing what he can do. Anybody listening to this podcast will be energized to overcome any adversity you have in your life.
That's so true. I joked on the episode that I just ran 2.5 miles a couple days ago and I barely made it through. And he's talking about doing 5 Ironmans back to back to back to back to back. I think that was 5. But that sounds insane, but it's also really motivating to say, okay, well, maybe my goals aren't as high as they should be. You know, if I'm setting a goal for running a 5K, that's probably a little too low. Maybe I need to bump this thing up and I can overcome whatever physical, you know, pain that I have, especially if Brad can do it. And he makes the point of saying, I'm nothing special, man. I keep going. I refuse to quit. And I have a why not me mentality.
And he wants to shoot for the stars.
Yep.
And not set a limit on his goals.
Yep.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was a great podcast.
Well, let's head west. Stay tuned as we discuss going from a wheelchair to ultra Ironmans, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, and avoiding victim mentality with our guest, Brad Kelley. This episode is brought to you by Skyline Point Capital. If you're anything like me, you're always considering where to invest your money. Stocks, bonds, crypto, and rental home, the list is literally endless. As we've all seen over the past year, the stock market is unstable, the housing market is just weird, and inflation is on the rise. In times like these, the clear place to invest my money is in multifamily real estate, aka apartment complexes. Here's why. Returns on real estate investments have little to no correlation with the stock market. There's lower volatility, stable income streams, and the tax benefits are insane. And let's not forget that the apartments will typically appreciate in value over time, which means you can walk away with a pretty nice return when the complex is sold in 3 to 5 years. Best of all, multifamily investing is passive, so you get all of the benefits without the hassle and headache of your typical rental home investment. Getting started has never been easier. Head to skylinepointcapital.com to learn how you can start investing today.
Well, this is a conversation we've been waiting to have for a couple months. Thankfully for us, you were coming through the area for some speaking engagements. So you're able to stop by for our first ever live Heading West episode. Lucky us. So where are you heading and what are these speaking engagements you have coming up?
So I came up here to celebrate my dad's birthday, and in the interim, I was like, you know, I had a call to get a couple of speaking gigs. And so on Wednesday, I'm going to be speaking out in Minden and Blue Hill, Nebraska.
Right on.
Oh.
Well, we're excited to have you here this morning. So thanks for joining us.
Of course.
I'd love to start our conversation 2003 time frame where all this really sort of takes off. Can you kind of walk us through what's happening in your life in 2001, 2, 3,
right,
and then that kind of cataclysmic moment in 2023? 2003. I'm kind of
the life-changing moment,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
right.
Hey, Jake, before we do that, I want to, from one Ironman to the other one. Glad you're here, Brad. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Glad you're here.
So in 2003, I was basically just living life. I was playing baseball with kids half my age, just working out, doing things, enjoying family life. I had a 4-year-old son at the time, and just kind of living life, a normal life. And over a 3-day period, my hands went numb, went to my elbows, and I basically just fell flat on my face. I was paralyzed. I was rushed to the hospital emergency room where, they kind of did some tests and stuff, and they said, we don't know what's wrong. So after that, they admitted me up into the critical care unit in the hospital, and from there, it pretty much just took off. I got every test that you could possibly get done. Poked, prodded, they took about 50 vials of blood, and they came back about 4 days later, and they said that I had this rare autoimmune disorder called Guillain-Barré syndrome. It affects 1 in 100,000 people. Wow. I happen to be the lucky one. I always say, I couldn't be the guy that won the new car or anything. I got this GBS, I got to deal with this. So anyway, the remedy for it was, they said, you've got to get a 5-day blood transfusion. You pretty much don't have a choice. That's going to reverse the effects of the Guillain-Barré. And as 3 of these doctors were leaving, one looked back at me and said, hey, there's one more thing to this. We don't know how this is going to affect you. It affects everybody differently. This is, we don't know if you'll ever walk normal again. Wow. So obviously at that point, I knew my life was going to change. Made it through the 5-day blood transfusion, and I left the hospital about 3 weeks later. Went home in a wheelchair. Obviously I wasn't walking. And from there, it was just a boring life at home. For about 2 months, I didn't do a whole lot. I watched a lot of TV. I got sick of watching TV. I mean, some people love watching TV, but when you watch it for 2 months,
it gets old quick.
It gets old really quick, and that's not me.
So what's going through your mind as they're telling you probably not going to walk again, right, at least very well,
right,
if maybe not at all,
right?
What's going through your mind through that process of life's normal, life's good, right, going on my merry way, to
right,
this is completely different?
So I think my biggest concern was, like I said, at the time I had a 4-year-old child. And so I'm thinking, am I going to be able to run with this kid, play ball with him? All those things as a family man, you think about it and you think, man, how am I going to be able to do all those things that a dad should do with his kid? Go fishing. I mean, I didn't know what my life was going to be. I really didn't. And so I was, confused. I start spiraling downhill. It's like, oh man, what am I going to do?
How'd you handle it mentally?
Exactly. Yeah. I probably didn't handle it very good, but it's one of those things where when you get that mindset, okay, so that mindset is there, but I always look at it as you get set up for these things, right? It's smaller things in life. And not to say that was a small thing, but once that happens, then you go, okay, I did that. Okay, now I need to move on to the next step.
So what happens after you get home? Okay, TV's not doing it for you anymore.
Yeah.
Is there a switch that flips at some point?
Yeah.
Where you're like, all right, I'm not going to do this anymore.
What I like to,
I'm done with this.
Yeah.
And how long was that?
That was about 2.5 months since I left the hospital.
Okay.
And right before I left, there was a lady that had given me a card that, hey, you've got rehab, right? I mean, when you're ready. And I knew I wasn't ready, but I called her anyway. I was like, I've had enough of this. And so I basically just called her and I said, hey, I'm ready. Come and get me. And so she came over in the van, lowered me down into the pool and stuff. And with her hands on my hands, chest up against my back, we walked 25 yards across the pool. And I was exhausted. I couldn't believe how far I'd gone down. So basically, I'm having to learn to walk again at 35 years old.
And your nerves are tingling and pain?
Pain, tingling, numbness. Yeah, and I still have that even today sometimes. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but even in some of the races that I do, I have the same tingling and numbness and pain that I had experienced back then. So, yeah. But going back to your question, my biggest concern was really my child and my family. Yeah. So, I mean, what am I going to do for an occupation? What am I, it's those questions just start going through your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was it, how long did it take to get from, okay, now you're just moving, you're relearning to walk, to I've got this idea to do more, to do competitive?
That was quite a while. I knew it was going to be a long time. Yeah. It's like, I always say you have to look at the things that are possible in the moment And obviously there's no way that was going to happen. First of all, I had to learn how to walk, and then it was get back to work at my regular job, and then get back into the gym, or, it's that process. It's like the smaller steps that you have to take to get to the bigger step. I always say it's you're down there at the bottom of the mountain, and you look up and you go, there's no way I can get to it. But with a lot of little steps, you can make it to the top.
That's good.
What would be your typical therapy for what you have? And when they had you in the water, is it a matter of massages or moving the body, or how does that work?
Yeah, so that's what it was. It was a matter of just really getting my body up and moving. I mean, I could wheel around in my wheelchair. My upper body, I could move around. Like, I could move around in my house, in my wheelchair and stuff, but everything was set up. I was sleeping downstairs. I mean, I wasn't even sleeping in a bed. I was sleeping on the couch because I couldn't go upstairs. It just didn't make any sense for me to go up there and try to bring the wheelchair up there. So you just had to adjust and all that. But just over time, you started out at 25 yards, and she got to the point where she was picking me up 2 and 3 times a day, just because that was the mindset that I had. I was determined to get out of this wheelchair, and that's, you're at the bottom of the barrel. You can't even walk. And knowing what I was able to accomplish before, being active and all that, there had to be a better place. And I had that mindset that I'm not staying in this wheelchair no matter what. No matter what these doctors said, I'm getting out of it.
Is that something that was ingrained in you? Is that something that's naturally in you? Because there's a lot of people who have some sort of setback like you've had, and decide this is the cards I've been dealt, and I'm okay with it. Right. And some people decide to push back and say, no, this is not good enough.
And there's many people that have the same thing that I had, that do just exactly that. They just said, you know what, this is my life. I'm just going to live in a wheelchair. I mean, they say 3 to 10% of the people will actually die from this thing. But I'm not one to live in fear, and especially after this. After this happened, my life completely changed. And I say this all the time. Sometimes we look at life and we go, man, why did this happen to me? Why? But I always look at it now as, why not me? People ask, why me? Yeah. I just say, why not me? And from that point on, I knew my life was going to change. And now I just have a mindset, go ahead and doubt me. I'm going to make it happen. Yeah. I mean, that's just the mindset I have. It's like, my family, they don't even bother doubting me anymore, because they're just like, no, we don't want to say that to him.
Yeah. What were they thinking while you were going through this, and before you said, okay, I'm going to make this happen? What were they thinking?
I think that they were skeptical. I mean, the doctors are saying one thing, and not to take anything away from doctors, but they're going to tell you, hey, this is the way it might be. Mm-hmm. And, I'm sure my wife at the time, she was just like, okay, this is going to change our life and everything. But again, I knew that there had to be something better out there. And so that's why I just, like I said, I would go 3 times a week, or 3 times a day sometimes. She would just come pick me up. And we had kind of a fast process. She said normally it takes about 6 months. It took us about 2.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I heard from some doctors that nobody on the bottom of their foot has an expiration date on it.
That's so true.
Nobody has that.
Yeah.
So,
that is so true.
Yeah. So, Steve has sort of teed it up. You've since run a number of Ironmen.
A few.
Yeah. Walk us through. I want to hear from.
And not just an Ironman. He's done some crazy Ironman,
which I'm sure we'll get to that. Walk us through that. Okay, now I'm starting to gain some mobility to first Ironman. What's that process like?
That was quite a while. Like I said, I went back to work and then started playing softball. Played a lot of softball and baseball and stuff, and then I was running, and that took about 6 years before I actually was even considering doing an Ironman. What really happened was I was in my gym and there was a guy that had on an Ironman shirt, and I was like, wow, that's so cool. And that would be so awesome to do that. Just kind of that fantasy moment, right? And
why not me?
Yeah, and I go, Ironman. And I just went over and talked to him. I was like, man, that's so cool, man. And he goes, you could do it. You look like you're in shape. And I was like, you have no idea what I have, man. I never told that I couldn't walk. So already I'm kind of doubting myself, right? And he goes, no, man. He goes, I'll get you through it. And well, little did I know he was a triathlon coach.
Whoa.
So I started out, he said, man, 3 weeks, I got a triathlon that I'm coaching all these athletes. I was like, 3 weeks? Are you kidding? And this is a little sprint triathlon, but
3
Steve,
weeks
you know
is fast.
as well as I do. Yeah, it's like, it's a 500-meter swim. And you don't think 500 meters is a lot, but when all you did was just like play in the pool and stuff. I mean, I'm out there about 200 yards in and I'm huffing and puffing and, you know, I'm holding on to the little kayak or the canoe or whatever was out there. And he's like, man, you okay? And I was like, you know, breathing hard. He goes, you got asthma? And I was like, yeah, I got asthma.
That's it.
I didn't have asthma. I just wanted to make myself feel good. And so I made it through that. There was 4 people left in the lake when I got out of that sprint triathlon. And I started in about the middle of the pack. And I got on my bike and did the 12 miles and ran the race, you know. And I got to the very end. And I was a fairly decent runner. Got to the very end. And you know how you always look up at the list to see how you do, right? After a race.
Yeah.
And I looked and I was like second from the bottom in my age group, right? And so,
But you finished.
but I finished, and so I
finished.
was so excited. And I did a couple more of those, and you know, I advanced to the half Ironman and made it to the World Championships of the half Ironman. And Steve, you know, the ultimate goal is to do a full Ironman if you're a triathlete. And so anyway, I went into the doctor. This is a couple weeks after I finished a 70.3, a half Ironman, and went into my doctor, and I was like, same doctor that told me I wasn't, you know, most likely gonna walk.
Look
very
at
good.
me now.
I supporting the shirt and everything, you know. I'm like sticking my chest out, and he goes, what do you got going on? I go, well, I was thinking about doing a full Ironman. I don't think that's possible with what you have.
Wow.
Again, you know, this
Full of
doubt.
hope.
Yeah. This doubt comes in my mind. So I go, well, and I pointed at my chest and I said, I'm going to be the one to change that.
Yeah.
And I walked out and I signed up for Ironman Louisville, and 4 hours later, it was supposed to take, you know, 4 months later, it's supposed to take place. 4 hours later. So I walked out the door, and 4 hours later, I was signed up for Ironman Louisville.
And it was 4 months away?
Yeah.
Are you crazy?
Yeah.
I think we've established that.
Yeah. I think you'll learn throughout this conversation. There's a little bit of craziness in there.
Yeah.
So, but, I mean, I'd done the half, and I was like, well, surely I can do full. And so anyway, yeah, it was one of those deals. And I just started training really hard. Somebody doubts me. I'm going to make sure that I not prove them wrong, but I at least try to exceed. So
I want to go back to the first triathlon you did, the sprint.
Yeah.
Tell me about when you finished. What was that like when you hit the finish line?
that was pretty amazing. And I think that's when I realized that there's bigger plans for me. I really did, because I could feel just the presence of, just the feeling of, man, I've done this. You know what I'm saying? All this time, these guys were saying, you aren't going to walk. You might not even walk. And to think that I just finished something that even very few people do, a small triathlon like that, to think to think I even did that was pretty amazing.
The feeling of crossing the finish line, it's so hard to describe.
Yeah, it really
But when you get across, there's this euphoria that comes across, and all that doubt that I couldn't do it, I wasn't going to do it, but in fact I did it.
Right. Yeah.
Did it make you want to keep signing up for Ironman or?
Oh, I signed up for one as soon as I got home. Didn't you? I wasted no time
I
whatsoever.
can do one. I can do two.
Right. I mean, I always say if you're still alive, you got a chance, right? I mean, that's kind of where I was at. But yeah, I just started signing up for a couple more sprints, and I think I only did, the distance, but I only did one Olympic, and then I was like, I'm gonna go I did Ironman or half Ironman in New Orleans. Had to swim with alligators, and I'm not a very good swimmer, and it's just like, that's a whole nother story. I got so many
Is
stories.
that the obstacle course part of that?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, I'm thinking, man, this is going to be great. I'll do this first half Ironman. I'll finish on the red carpet on Bourbon Street. I'm thinking, how great is this going to be, right?
Great.
And about 2 months before, I see a article that said there was a child that got his arm chopped off by an
Wow.
alligator. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm not a very good swimmer.
Yeah.
I'm going to be out there by myself in the same lake that there's, that was, I wanted to swim a lot faster. Let's just put it that way.
Personal record.
Yeah,
for that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's got to be, your perspective on life has to be completely different than, guys like Steve and I. I at least have never had something that I thought would set me back to where, okay, I can't do something, or I'm
Right.
close to death, or whatever
Right.
the case may be. And I can imagine your perspective on life now is, wow, look at the cool things I still get to do despite the
Right.
setbacks.
it's like a second chance of life, I mean, and that's why I say I'm blessed no matter what I do from this point on, because just getting that second chance, I mean, from the man upstairs, it's like, he there was just bigger plans for me. It's like I look at it as a hum-ho life. Not to say that I had that, but I just went about life. But now I look at it and I have an opportunity to speak to tens of thousands of people, and encourage people to do things that maybe are a little bit out of their comfort zone. And to think that I've been able to do that just because of what happened, my life completely changed. And that's why I say I would never change what happened for anything.
Have you seen in the triathlon, in the community itself, you see all these different types of people, tall, short,
Yeah.
skinny, heavy, and
Exactly.
et cetera.
Yeah.
People that have physical issues and et cetera. When I was racing, the sport to me was very much a pay it forward sport.
Yes.
Everybody helped you,
Yeah.
no matter. Did you experience the same thing?
Not necessarily from my standpoint. Now, as far as coaching and different things like that, yes. But I think it's probably been more from me telling other people, hey, you can do it. I mean, there's been times where I've walked along somebody in a long Ironman that there's no way they're going to make it unless somebody is just walking alongside them. And, 2 or 3 miles, and I might tell just a small part of my story, and they're like, I'll see you at the finish line.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it really is. And that's why I say, you don't realize how blessed you are and the impact that you might make on something like, just things that happen. It's amazing. It really is.
I was racing in Kona, and I came upon a guy that was walking, just like you were talking about.
Right.
He was in my age group.
Yeah.
And we were competitors trying to finish the race, and we became great friends. And he helped me because I was the one that was walking. And so he took off, and guess what? I found him walking, so I helped him. It was a great experience.
Yeah, it really is. It's and not to say other communities aren't close like that, but the Ironman community, the ultra community that we'll talk about later, but it's all those, you just get to know everybody. I mean, I could go anywhere in the world and probably have a place to stay now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of racing, okay, I ran 2.5 miles yesterday and about died.
Yeah.
I'm not in running shape. Let's put it that way. How are you keeping your mind in the right spot through these races? I mean, walk us through. Okay, what is an Ironman as far as distance, just so listeners can understand.
Yeah, right.
And then how are you in the middle of your run or your bike? Are you able to keep yourself going? I feel like you guys have like an inside joke here. You guys know this.
We're going to leave you out of this.
Yeah,
You're not
totally
part
fine.
of it, so you can.
I intend to run an Ironman at some point, so I'll
tell
get there
everybody else
someday.
is watching,
Yeah.
but don't
There you
tell.
go.
Yeah, there we
Tell
go.
me when I'm older.
Yes.
So a regular Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim,
Mhm.
and then you go 112 miles on your bike, and then you run a full marathon as soon as you get done with that.
Easy peasy.
Right, exactly. And you have to finish in less than 17 hours in order for it to be a full Ironman, a official Ironman.
Okay.
So anyway, but you're asking how, as far as mindset,
Yeah.
first of all, when I get to the swim, I'm just hoping to get through it because that's like the worst part for
Swimming?
me.
Yeah.
I spend very little time with swimming. And fortunately, I have a decent enough upper body and endurance that I just kind of drudge through it. And I know I'm going to be behind after the swim, but I don't spend a whole lot of time there. I'd
Yeah.
rather get on my bike and ride a couple 100 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I swim like a tugboat. just
Yeah.
just slow and steady.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And then on the run, you know, you're just pedaling. It's just, I've done it so many times, and Steve, you can probably say the same thing. It's once you start getting out there, I really enjoy being on my bike. It's just relaxing to me. And so that's really not the hard part of it. When I get into some of the really, really long races and you're biking in the middle of the night, and you see weird creatures out there and stuff and skeletons in the, in the woods over there, that you probably need to go take a rest.
Yeah.
But just the whole mindset, again, things completely changed when all this came down, the Guillain Barre. My mindset changed from, I'll just live life, to now, I know that pretty much anything is possible. I just do. I mean, they always say the biggest distance to overcome is the distance between, your 2 ears. It's that 6 inches.
Yeah.
And if you get that mindset right, you can go a lot of places.
Yeah.
The mental game is it means more than the physical part of you.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's like they say about the Navy SEALs, that when you're at your limit as a Navy SEAL, you got 40%.
40%.
Yeah.
40% left in you.
Yeah.
And you have to keep thinking that when you're on the run. There's
got
more.
more. Yeah.
There's more there.
Yeah, there really is.
How'd you prevent a victim mentality through this whole process, especially early on, obviously, but even now, because now you're battling another,
Right.
I wouldn't say injury, but
Right.
something you're battling now. How do
Right.
you prevent a victim mentality or a why me mentality?
Are you saying, I'm assuming what you're saying is the victim mentality, like how can I prevent from being bitter? Or
Yeah, like why me? Like,
Right, okay.
like I just beat something and now I've got something else to deal
Right.
with. What, didn't I have enough?
I like to use the example, and this might sound funny, but some people like to drink the Gatorade. Other people likes to drink the Haterade.
Yeah.
And you can hold on to it for so long, right? And I always use the example, you can hold it out here this long, right? And
Yeah.
a minute, an hour, but try holding that for a day. At a certain point,
Yeah.
you got to just drop it and move on with your life. And that's why I say the Haterade, I'm just not going to do it. I just refuse to be bitter towards anybody. I mean, I was bullied in junior high and all that. And I could go back and I could be bitter to all those people but it's just simply not, it's just not worth it. I like
Yeah.
to stay positive and remain focused.
Yeah. Even a woe is me though mentality is hard to not, fall into
Yeah,
of like all these things are happening.
Right.
Why can't I just get a positive break?
Right.
But it seems like you found a way of like, okay, throw whatever you want at me.
Yeah.
I'm going to find my way through
Right.
it.
Yeah. And and whether that comes from just my home life and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I had a great home. I was loved. And it just, all that combined, I just refuse to be anything but positive. I'm not going to let something steal my joy. I'm not going to let somebody steal my kindness. I know how blessed I am. I'm even more blessed now that I've had this opportunity to have a second chance.
How was your wife in this process and training on Ironman and all the hours you put in?
Right.
My wife didn't like it.
Yeah.
I found that out later.
Right.
When I said I'm done, and she said, "Praise God, you're
Yeah.
done."
Right. Well, that's probably why we're divorced now.
Oh, that'll, yeah.
I'm kidding. No, we still get along great. And that's the other thing is I went through a divorce, and even to this day, why be better? It's just simply not worth it. But she was good about it. She was very supportive. So, and my family in general was supportive other than just saying I was crazy. They were pretty supportive.
I think crazy is a good thing. It's a badge of honor.
Right?
Yeah.
Anybody doing Ironman's crazy.
Right,
Just
right.
own it, right?
Right, exactly.
What did training look like for the two of you? This is a question for you as well, Steve. What did training look like on a regular basis? Let's just say for an Ironman. I know you've done more than just an Ironman,
Right.
which sounds insane that like an Ironman, my brother did an Ironman this year, which we were so proud of him for. But like, I didn't think there was anything more than that or longer distance.
Right.
How did you guys train for an Ironman? What's an average day?
How
look
many
like?
hours would you put in for a normal?
When I was training heavily, it'd be every day, Monday through Friday, 4 hours a day.
Okay.
8 hours on Saturday and 6 on Sunday, rinse and repeat.
For how long you said?
That was probably 9 months.
Holy moly.
I had some goals, and I had to learn how to swim when I was 58.
Okay.
So it's, now you know why I swim like a tugboat.
Right? Right.
So I had to make up some
Okay,
things,
sure.
and but that was, and I had what they say the triathlon widow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
On top of being married and having kids and running a business. Good gracious.
crazy.
I didn't train that much. I'm just going to be honest with you. But Steve's a lot faster than I am too.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to finish. Steve is the guy that wants to get first place.
Win, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, just for me to finish after all I've been through is an accomplishment for me.
Yeah.
I remember watching the Ironman. If you remember
Yeah.
the wild world of sport.
Yeah.
I do.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yes.
On a Saturday, and you look at these guys, and you're going, "You're nuts."
Yeah.
I
Running
could
through
never.
the desert.
Yeah, and they're swimming, and it was basically the World Championship
Yeah.
at Kona in Hawaii, and you'd watch this thing, and you're going, "These guys are absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Something's mentally wrong."
Right?
And
Bump.
mentally wrong. And lo and behold, you can do it. It's
Yeah.
like what Brad said. It's all up here,
Right.
and you start one step at a time. One step at a time.
Speaking of mentally wrong, this year it sounds like you're planning on doing a 5X Ironman and hopefully a 10X Ironman next year.
I hope so.
Talk us through. Yeah, is it? Is it like, okay, do an Ironman, day off, another Ironman, day off? What is it? It's
No.
not like consecutive, is it?
Yeah, it's so my plan is to go to France, and it will be a 12-mile swim.
Is that because that's the only place it's legally allowed to do a 5 Ironman?
They have a couple other
Yeah.
places. I mean, there's usually about 10 people that do it. In this, they have other events that are going on, but usually about 8 to 10 people would do the 5. But it's a 12-mile swim, and then you go 560 miles on your bike,
Oh my gosh.
and then you run 5 marathons back to back. So 131 miles.
That's
Why?
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great. I mean, that's
Okay,
in,
so
you're
that-
saying
that
it in
is-
jest.
And people
yeah.
ask me that, when is it going to stop? Like, why do you do this to yourself? You know, I still hear the doctors' voices saying, you aren't going to be able to walk again. You know, you're going to have this disability for the rest of your life. And not to say I'm trying to defy the doctors or say you're wrong or whatever, but there's a point in my life where I just said, you know what, I'm going to do all I can. I'm going to make sure I have no regrets. I don't want to look back and go, man, I wish I would have at least tried that.
Yeah.
And that's so true about people in life. They won't even try something because they're afraid of failing. Whereas if you got to get to the starting line before you even get to the finish line, why not at least try?
Yeah. There's this old Hunter S. Thompson quote that I love. It's like my life quote, but I'm going to butcher it, but it's something to the effect of, I don't want to end up at the end of my life in a well-preserved body. I want to come in my sliding sideways, dust everywhere, you know, wrinkled skin, and saying, woo, that was a ride.
Right.
You know, like
That's
use,
safe.
yeah, exactly. Use everything that I've got
Right.
until the very end.
Right. My saying, and it's along the same line, is I want to get to the very end and I want to be like burning on fumes, man. Just like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm in that car and I'm still on fumes, and they go, man, he had a good life. He's not going to have any regrets in his life.
Yeah.
It's in our family. Jake knows about this, but we have tattooed on us 2 Timothy 4:7.
Okay.
I fought the good fight.
Yep.
I finished the race. I kept the faith.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how we want to.
Yeah.
We want to keep the faith all the way to the end of the race.
Absolutely.
That is so true.
What have you, this is more of a, let's say meta question. What have you learned about the human spirit through this process, and what the human spirit can endure through, I mean, again, you're almost paralyzed,
Right.
potentially almost dead,
Right.
to now we're talking about you're going to do a 10X Ironman potentially next year. And I think you said Mexico, we talked offline.
Right.
What have you learned about the human spirit and what you're capable of through this?
I think the human body is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you push your body, you won't know what it's capable of. So many people hold back from pushing the body. I have this pain threshold that's amazing, obviously. but it's one of those things where I just push through the pain. It's like, I'm already in this race. I might as well finish. What's a little bit more pain? I mean, I've done things with stitches in my foot or a broken foot or a broken shoulder, or races one-eyed and all. I mean, I'm not quitting. I got stitches in the middle of a race one time. I'm just like, he said, it's going to take 30 minutes for this, painkiller to kick in. And he goes, do you want it? I go, nope, just sew that baby up. And he sewed it up and I was on my way.
Yeah.
So it's just the pain threshold. But again, the spirit of just anybody and the mindset is so important. I can't express it enough.
Yeah. What do you think holds people back from achieving something like this? I mean, I think you alluded to it, that it's probably the mindset.
Right.
Physically, most people can do, maybe not Ironman, but something beyond what they think they can. Do you think that's the mindset's what keeps people from doing great things like this?
I think not just the mindset, but I think it's the fear of failure. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but 87% of people think they can't accomplish them because they're afraid of failing. And so you put that into perspective. Think about all the people who, once they finish something, this as well. How many people say, man, there's no way I can do a marathon. But yet you start out small, you 5K, 10K, and you work your way up. You might have to walk it, but guess what? You can still finish it. And once you finish that, you become unstoppable with your mindset. That's just kind of where I'm at. I just think that people don't push their body or their just whatever it is.
Yeah.
People say, man, there's no way I can open up a restaurant. There's no way I can do this. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be in sports, business, whatever it is. I just feel like people hold back from that because they're so afraid of failing.
Yeah.
You see, like when you finish a race, like an Ironman race, and people didn't think they could do that. So on their first Ironman race, you finish it, your body is on fire. You sit down and your first thought is, I'm never going to do
That is
this
so true.
again.
That is
I'm
so true.
never again am I going to do an Ironman.
Yeah.
You wake up the next morning
Oh yeah.
and it's like, and
You're
then the
already
next,
scrolling the internet to see what the next one is.
Is there another
the
cool
next
location?
morning,
Yeah.
after you say, I'm never going to do it, you're on the internet looking for the next Ironman.
Yeah.
And it's that back to achieving something. It could be a sprint. It could be a
Right.
5K or 10K. Once you get that feeling of I accomplished something,
Yeah.
it just feeds on itself. It is the craziest thing.
Yeah, it really is.
Case in point, my brother did his Ironman. I think he did Maryland or Virginia. This is a guy who he never did any sort of, I mean, he played football,
Right.
but that was about the extent of his athletic. I mean,
Right.
he did BMX and stuff growing up, but he never ran, never lifted weights.
Yeah.
And then just all of a sudden last year decided, I want to do this thing. Did it, completed it, said, I will never do an Ironman again. This week he texted me and we were just catching up. He's like, I think I'm going to do Ironman sprint every year of my life. And I just did a 3-mile run barefoot.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like,
Barefoot?
what? Barefoot. And I was like, what about like stepping on pebbles and rocks? Like I step on my kids' Legos and I lose my mind. How are you running on the streets barefoot?
Yeah.
It's like, it's just in your head, man.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're so right.
Yeah. I don't know that I'd ever run barefoot though. I did that in Lake Placid one time and I ended up getting stitches during the middle of the race of that too. So it's like the swim was cut back and I was at the furthest end that you could be at in Lake Placid. I had to run all the way down the road into transition and I ended up having to get 4 or 5 stitches in my foot during that race. I was like, yeah. So, mud and everything.
Not good.
No.
Not good.
What's next? I mean, you're going to keep doing Ironmans.
Right.
Is there any other obstacle that you want to accomplish that's maybe outside of the Ironman arena?
Outside of the triathlons and stuff.
Yeah.
More than anything, I mean, I want to finish those, but I've felt a call to like give back more also. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro over in Africa.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, so I've already done it. I've
Why
done
not?
that.
I know, why not?
Yeah. So
I love that.
was in 2019, and that was quite amazing also. I mean, it was one of the 7 highest. It's the highest freestanding mountain in the world. So but doctors again said I couldn't do that either. And so, but I was supposed to do Everest base camp in 2020 and see what it was like. to get, and then I was supposed to be in Russia this past year, but obviously with all the
Sure.
complications, that didn't happen. But I'd like to do some more mountain climbing
Yeah.
and just see where it can go from there. And
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
That's pretty impressive.
That is impressive. I'm starting to think. I had a goal this year of running a half marathon. Actually, no, it was a 10K. It wasn't even a half marathon. And I'm like, I wonder if I should bump that up a little bit.
right.
You feel kind of like
I feel like that's I feel like a 10K is totally doable, not even a problem.
Yeah.
Which makes me think I did undershoot it a little bit. Right. Like it should be a half marathon.
Don't underachieve.
Yeah.
Like, and I always say, try to go for more. So many people underestimate what they can do.
Yeah.
And then they accomplish it and they're like, that was okay.
Yeah.
But if you like go for a little bit more, say you go for a half or even a marathon, you might have to walk it.
Yeah.
But you'll get to the end of that and you'll just be like, okay, I did this. I can do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the mindset that I have. And I know some people don't have that mentality. But once you start accomplishing things, and I just feel like there's nothing that's really going to stop me from doing something.
Yeah. I wonder, you've since stopped doing competitive like triathlons, right?
when pandemic came, and then I've got a little heart issue.
Yeah.
So
Do you feel like there's now a void of like, whether it's competition or extreme exercise that is hard to fill? How are you feeling that?
I'm going to try to fill it with golf.
Golf.
But
Yeah.
but there's nothing like swimming,
Sure.
biking, and running and doing that. So
And being competitive.
there is some thought of going back and doing some sprints or
yeah.
smaller ones,
Yeah.
just to keep the body and get that energy
Yeah.
going.
I'll join you. We'll
yeah,
do it.
awesome.
There you
Hi, Brad, I got a question for you. When you're telling your story in front of people,
Yeah.
and you're all different ages and et cetera, how do you know you're actually getting through to people and they're hearing your message and they walk away with, okay, I'm glad I came to hear Brad speak.
Right. Yes, I know that the crowd that I probably make the biggest impact on. I mean, I'll do the keynote speeches for the companies or at churches and stuff like that. But middle and high school, I know is where it kind of hits home like, hey, things are possible, right? Sometimes you leave one and you're just like, I had no impact on these kids whatsoever.
Yeah.
And, a couple weeks later, I'll get the random email from
Sure.
some kid that said, hey, you saved my life. And it kind of throws you back for a
Yeah.
minute. And then you read the email and you remember the guy that was in the black sweatshirt when it was 105 degrees out? That was me. Yeah, I was cutting my wrist all week long,
Wow.
covering up my sleeves, and I was going to take my life this weekend. But you came and spoke that Friday. You saved my life.
Yeah.
I know I have direction.
Purpose.
It's like, okay, I guess I made an impact. You
Yeah.
know, so that's kind of where you have no idea. And, Steve and I were talking earlier, it's so easy to just be a kind individual. It's like, it's not that hard. Hey, man.
Doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing just by saying hi to somebody.
Yeah.
You don't even know.
Yeah.
How's your day?
Right. Could
Glad to
totally change their day.
You never know what's going on in their life.
Yeah.
And just by saying a little comment can change things.
Yeah. I had a friend a couple months ago, a good friend of mine, say he was standing in line at a Starbucks. This is when we were having to wear masks.
Right.
And, he looked at somebody and just pulled down his mask and smiled at them and said, "Hey, good morning."
Yeah.
And the guy pulled him aside and said, "You have no idea how infrequently I get a smile and a good morning made my day."
Right. Yeah, I try to smile all the time. It doesn't matter if I'm having a bad day or not. I don't have too many bad days.
Yeah.
But I try to make it a point to smile a lot. One of the things that I've actually done lately is I've been trying to give back more also. Over the past couple of years, I could give away toys, or I could give away books, or I could give away shoes or whatever. But as an athlete, I've given away like 1,000 balls. just worldwide. I have no idea where any of I know they've gone to Asia. I know they've gone to Africa. I know they've gone to Nepal. I mean, I know they've gone to all these places. What kind of impact they have, I don't know. But it might be a kid that shows up in the World Cup in 10 years. You know what I'm saying?
Know. Yeah.
So it's just kind of my way of giving back. I know how blessed I am.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the ways that's probably more of what I do or want to do in the future also. I mean, I've accomplished a little bit. And so it's just like, now it's time for me to give back.
Yeah. As a way of wrapping up our time together, what is it typically that you want to leave people with at these, when you're speaking to a middle school or a high school? What's the message that you want to leave with them that I'm sure the listeners would love to hear as well?
Right. My main message when I go and speak is life is about little steps. You have to take the little steps to get to the big ultimate goal. Don't try to take a big goal and go, you know what, I'm going to go from a couch to an Ironman overnight. It's not going to happen.
Brad would.
Okay?
Yeah.
I would probably,
you could, yeah.
But most people, that's just not the mentality. So I always say, take the small steps that you need to take, and you're going to have setbacks. I mean, life is about, valleys and peaks.
Yeah.
You're going to have those setbacks, whether it's, you lose a game or, but those are all learning experiences. But if you take the small steps to get up to the big mountain, you can look down on that mountain when you're done and go, man, I did it.
Yeah.
Took a lot of little steps, but I did it. Life is a journey. There is no doubt.
Well, at the end of every episode of Heading West, we have a speed round of questions.
Yeah.
Get your seatbelt on.
Yeah, quick questions, quick answers. So I'll just run through a couple of them. Do you have any daily rituals that you swear by?
Really? Just smile.
That's good.
Yeah. That's probably my biggest one. Smile as much as I possibly can.
It's really good. What's one item you could not live without?
My son.
That's a good one. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Let's see. What's one thing in life or business in your job that you're really excited about today?
Retirement. Yeah. I mean, I know I'm really close to retirement at my full-time job. And so it's so inevitable that it's exciting now.
You can see it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah.
I'm at the end of the tunnel.
That's good.
That's cool.
In what situations do you find you're the most happy or fulfilled?
Probably on my bike.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Or with my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Last question. Heading West is obviously the title of the podcast. It's really this way of saying, just get going. Start in one place, you end up at some point, but you learn along the way.
Right.
So as you head west in life, where do you hope to end up?
I hope that throughout life I leave a better footprint than when I came in. We all want to make an impact in people's life, but it's one of those things where I know that now with what I've done and all the things that I've accomplished, I know I can probably make even a greater impact. And I think that's one of the things that, over the coming years, I want to make an impact in other people's lives rather than my own.
I have no doubt Brad's going to do that. I have
100%.
no doubt.
Yeah. Well, I'm already going to sign up for a half marathon now.
There you go. I
I don't know if I'll thank you for that or not. But
Yeah. You can thank me
A
later.
half?
half marathon?
Not a full marathon?
That's what I thought he said
Hey,
earlier.
I heard
Right.
full. What'd
I
you
did
hear?
too.
Yeah.
Well, you're both getting old. Let's baby steps.
Right.
His takeaways, baby steps.
Right.
We'll go with baby steps. Where can people find you if they want to hear you talk, if they want to get in touch with you? Where can they find you?
Right. My website is bradkelleyspeaks.com. And then they can find me at media@bradkelleyspeaks.com.
That's great. Easy. We'll link everything to this
sure.
episode. But
Right?
thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
You've inspired us.
What a pleasure. This
Yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Maybe
much.
you guys will have to race in an Ironman soon.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
He's getting me excited.
I know,
Right.
right? You're ready to
There you
go.
go. Yeah, you can come and live feed it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
there
there
we
you
go.
go.
Yeah.
We'll do that. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure.
Thanks,
Thank you
Brad.
very much for your time.
Yeah.